Thank you for being here in DC in the wake of spring. I'm Abby Lee from China General Chamber of Commerce, USA. I'm very glad and honored today to bring you the updated findings of another business survey report that we have this year. From here, I can see many old friends that has been supporting us and this research project for many years. And I can also see some new faces in the room. It's really, I'm glad to be here. So for the mix and diversity of the audience, we do have something special for you. As Peter just mentioned, the 2023 business survey is a milestone for us. And for everyone who has ever participated in it, it's the 10th anniversary of our annual survey. So now we can proudly say that for the past decade, that as one of the most comprehensive research projects focusing on existing Chinese business in the US, our survey helps to timely update business developments and reflect the issues they've encountered in the previous year. At the same time, the report also helps the US market to better understand the operational status of the Chinese business in the US, their positive impacts on and contributions to the US economy and their local communities. So this year, we gathered firsthand data from 101 Chinese companies. Their US operations span all 11 sectors of the global industry classification standards. And here lists the top 5 industry sectors this year: financials, industrials, consumer discretionary, real estate, and energy. Well, according to the data collected, we observed and generated 4 key trends. We can roughly divide them into 2 layers. Well, the first 2 on the left summarizes the most recent performances and the status of companies in the previous decade, in the year of 2022. And this is how we traditionally do for those who are familiar with us. And the other 2 on the right, this year, we're able to expand the time frame to the previous decade where the survey has been conducted, as it also overlaps the volatile and splendid 10-year journey of most of the Chinese companies entering the US. So let's delve into Reddit. So first, I believe it's not surprising for all of us that Chinese companies' financial performances were slightly down with gloomy outlook. If we look at the US revenue, a greater percentage of surveyed respondents companies experienced a decline in revenue compared to the year prior. This year, with 13% of them experiencing a revenue dip of more than 20%, if we can see the left end of the bar, and 24% of them experiencing a decline between 0 to 20%. By comparison, the percentage of companies showing revenue growth on the right end of the bar this year is significantly lower than last year, which poses a leading concern here. This is the revenue side. And from the profit perspective, a greater portion of companies, actually 34% compared to 25 last year, maintained their positions in 2022, while the proportion of companies that achieved growth decreased significantly. The percentage that achieved 0 to 5% growth and more than 5% growth was 19% and 15% respectively. And that number we can see from last year was 25 and 19. There's another angle that we have been monitoring each year. That is the new business investment made in the US. Well, this year, the proportional distribution of investment decisions in the area of growth, stagnation, and decrease and decline remained largely unchanged from last year. with a little, if you can see the red end of the bar was a little shrink on the increased part. So I believe all of you have the hard copy on your table. If you look into the details of the survey report, we do observe some different variations for various industries. Their investment decisions have very different logic. If, for example, if I recall it correctly, the business companies in the real estate have very conservative new investment decisions, but industrials and financials are more optimistic in this report details. And the second trend brings us to the concerns and the challenges of the Chinese companies faced in 2022. Well, among the many external factors that have emerged, the data shows that the stalemate in bilateral relations between the US and China, inflations and the US economy uncertainty, and the US-China economic and trade frictions are definitely the leading concerns at this top three. I know this is not surprised at all, because for the past years, since 2018, well, those concerns remain at the top of the list. But this year, they're strikingly highlighted as the top tier concerns. If you can see, other options are selected by almost only half of the respondents compared to the first three. And according to some interviews we did with selected company executives, some of the first tier concerns even form the sole decisive factor for their business development and investment decisions, especially, for example, for the air transportation and logistic industries. They are highly impacted by those concerns and challenges here. And if some of you could still recall from last year that we observed the company's expectations for the relationship in the near future between our two countries are not getting better. So this year, it remained largely the same, with an overall cautious attitude, you can see from the chart. The most frequent response expects the status quo to remain. That's almost half of the respondents will expect the status quo of the bilateral relationship will remain. Well, 44% of them predict a further deterioration at the left side of the bar, and only 8% of them expect near-term improvements. So that's definitely something we will keep monitoring closely. Another important factor that we have focused on this year is the negative impacts of the inflation here in the United States. It's clear that the challenge is highly pronounced, with 83% of the respondents reported that it has negative impacts on their business operations, if we can see from the upper part of the charts. And if we look at the part at the bottom, it shows some of the leading cost factors due to the ongoing inflation last year. Obviously, labor, inventory, supplies, and utilities contributed to most of the cost increases. And with cost increases inevitable from the inflation, our companies must react accordingly. Well, the data shows nearly half of the respondents chose to raise prices for their products and services, thus inevitably shifting costs to downstream customers and clients. And other responses include more advanced energy efficient products and technologies, proactively foregoing revenue opportunities and reducing total employee cost, unfortunately. Well, in terms of the slowing inflation, like companies' expectations, 37% of companies believe it will happen, like the slowing down of inflation will happen within the next 1 to 2 years. 35% of them are more optimistic to see it in the next 7 to 12 months. But by contrast, only 7 believe that it will slow within the next 6 months. and relatively few, 80% of them in total, are quite pessimistic that it will take another 3 to 5 years to slow down. So the overall consensus predicts that the inflation will slow down in somewhere between the next 6 months to 2 years, that period of time. There's one thing that hasn't changed for the past 10 years that we've been doing this research. That's the Chinese companies' strategic commitment to the US market. That has never changed. Well, so companies highly value the advantages of this US market and have developed their own localization strategies to better adapt to and thrive here. Among the factors of the US market, it could provide technologies and innovation, ESG, environment, social equity, and inclusiveness are the most popular ones, as we have been familiar with. Well, however, the data this year also indicates that companies have mixed feelings about the workforce and talents, infrastructures, as well as the legal and regulation environment of the US market, especially in recent years. But we observed in recent years that Chinese companies have employed several metrics to devise successful localization strategies. Here we list some of the major areas of the matrix that the Chinese companies have adopted, such as the ownership of assets, local workforce and storage, community engagement, as well as local customer or client rate. So some of the results are actually very promising. If we can see, I highlighted it with the different color, the green bar. For example, the left corner, actually more than half of our respondents, 56% of the respondents report that over 80% of their client or customer base is from local. So that is something. So which indicates that strong focus on understanding and catering to local needs and demand preferences. So as we all know, this emphasis on localization not only helps Chinese companies to foster better relationships with local customers, they also ensures that better integration in the US market and will enhance their long-term success. And also, over the past decade and even longer, Chinese companies have recognized the value of operating both in the US and in China, so the dual market benefits from this business strategy. So it also, as we can see here, I listed 4 of the major benefits recognized by the Chinese companies. It provides valuable business insights and learning opportunities that can inform and improve their operations in other global regions. The 4 listed here are revenue capture, international expansion experiences, learning opportunities in the global competition, and talent training for long-term success. So also feel free to refer to the hard copy of the survey report. They have more details about how companies have adopted localization strategies to better thrive in this market. The last but not least trend we observed is that the past market cycles, like the ups and downs during the past decade, have actually helped Chinese companies to cope with short-term fluctuations. So during the up cycles, Chinese companies usually prioritize activities that generate a top-line growth, including expanding into new areas, growing customer base, enhancing brand and marketing initiatives, as well as recruiting new talents. Well, if this is intuitive during the up cycles, then it's very interesting to notice that when it comes to the competing market conditions, the actions that Chinese companies take tend to enhance flexibility and resilience of their core business, but at the same time, they will actively look for new avenues of growth for future market recovery. As we can see here, um, business, over half of the, over half over half of the respondent companies chose to identify brand new business opportunities and speed up the growth even during the downturn. So what it may seem a little bit aggressive, but we feel that this type of action demonstrates the proactive and resourceful nature of Chinese companies here in the US. Okay. It has been our great privilege to be the witness and the supporters of the US-China business collaborations over the past decade. So there is so much to learn from the previous experience. So in this year's report, we create a whole section and try to generate some advice for Chinese companies operating in the US, hoping to provide, some insights and recommendations for their ongoing success. So the report contains more detailed explanations and instructions for each of the advice. But the major highlights are here, like use the current downturn to fortify operations and capabilities, to build a systematic approach for portfolio expansion in other global regions, to grow revenue with leading US business innovations and overcome local talent shortages with new digital technology. And last, to consider regional expansions to further advance US operations even. Okay, so, well, I wish I could have more time to go through all the details, but I do want to leave more time for the two separate panels, blended panels later. So as US and Chinese business still hold type commercial interests in each other's market, we at CGCC will continue to committed to not only carry out more constructive engagement and encourage positive conversations, but also to build bridges and achieve synergies between the two largest economies in the world. So thank you all for your time and attention. And the English and Chinese version of the report can be accessed on our CGC's official website. Feel free to take a look and look forward to your feedback and recommendations. Thank you. Thank you for your time.